And so we're going to be talking about kind of, I guess we're going to get back to the topic of, are reviews still relevant in the game industry? And this is a long-standing topic among developers, consumers, and of course, especially the publishers. Now, the idea or the importance of reviews has certainly shifted over the last 20 to 30 years. Again, when we were growing up in the 80s and 90s, game sites, or I'm sorry, just game journalists, pretty much if you didn't get, that was your only real source of information about a video game. You weren't going to go online, you weren't going to find any demo reels anywhere like that. This was long before the days of the internet. I know, shocking for a lot of people watching this right now. But back then, your only way to know about if a video game was good or not was if it came in Nintendo Power, Game Pro, Funko Land magazine, which then became Game Informer, and so on. And things have certainly shifted. Again, with the rise of the internet, and then following that, the rise of YouTube and Twitch, we've seen a lot more ways for people to get information about video games. And I guess for you, Rob, since you grew up around, we both grew up around that time and saw things evolve, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's definitely true that you had the one source. I remember getting the weekly Nintendo Powers, and the thing I liked most about it was the very obvious camera screenshots of every screen to display a whole level. That's an aside, but definitely reading reviews, mostly talking with friends, was my source, and we would of course share games. And that was how I would basically, me personally, I'd find, like, I like Sierra games, I like adventure games back then, and LucasArts games. Those were the ones that would basically get everything they did. Other than that, I would trust friends' opinions. Occasionally, I'd just buy one that looked cool to me. I did that for a couple of Nintendo games back in the day. Very rarely did I do that for a computer game. So people would definitely have to, recommend one, or it would have to be a sequel of one I liked.
Yep.
But yeah, mostly when I was getting into college, I think was when the mid '90s, early to mid '90s, was when, like, the boon of the game publishers, like the Metascores, like that kind of stuff, really took off. And when I first got into the games industry in the early 2000s, like, that was do or die. You get a below an 80, and that's like, it's over.
And Metacritic and these kinds of aggregates have become, I think they've become more important than actual game reviews these days, because there's just so many people that are giving their thoughts on reviews.
Yeah.
The chat's been mentioning, of course, the YouTube rise. And you can't throw a stone these days without having a gaming YouTuber put a 15 to 20 minute video together on a game, or yelling about a topic or stuff like that.
Right, but the one thing that's confusing to me, and the one reason that makes this topic so interesting, is very specifically games that are big and make a ton of sales but have miserable reviews, and it seems to be something that I'm seeing more and more often. And again, we just literally talked about it, and I'm having a brain fart moment, and I can't remember the name of the game.
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky. Ugh. We mentioned this last week, and I mentioned the reviews, and the fact of the matter is, it just keeps getting purchased, and people keep giving reviews that are mixed. It's never getting above 50%, even on the most recent ones. So, like, what is the thought process for seeing No Man's Sky? Is it that you want to experience it for yourself, that it looks so good it can't possibly be as bad as what everyone says, so you buy it? I know that the hardcore people, and that includes YouTubers and Twitch streamers, actively don't like that game. Now, there's some who do, and it's a very gorgeous game to watch. But how is it that reviews still matter, and this game is selling like hundreds of thousands of copies, if not over 1 million? I don't get that.
Yeah. There's always that phenomenon, the quote-unquote hate watching. You play or you experience something that you don't like just to kind of do it. But as Draken is saying in chat, Like No Man's Sky has improved, and that's another really big point about reviews. And please, somebody remind me about bring if I forget this, re-reviews. Just say that to me, because that's going. I want to talk about that one in a few minutes. But yeah, and like getting back to the like YouTube side, like there's just so much information out there about video games today. I mean, again, as we just said a few minutes ago, it is night and day compared to when we were growing up in the 80s and 90s to what's happening now. I mean, I type in the name of a video game, I'm going to get a Metacritic review. I will get probably 5 to 10 professional sites. I'll probably get a few dozen not so professional sites. And then, of course, I will get who knows how many YouTubers talking about these games. I mean, it's very easy these days to find information. And yep, I was about to talk about that too. I'll go to see the chat knows. They know what we're about to talk about. They're good like that.
Right.
But when it comes to this kind of information, though, it's all just being piled on and piled on. And it's getting harder and harder, I think, to get that reputable information. Because again, you'll, like as you just said, Rob, with like No Man's Sky, there are dozens of videos of people outright condemning and bashing that game. But are those videos still relevant? I mean,
well,
go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your words, but like that's part of my question is because back in the old days, like they wouldn't have had the opportunity to fix the game. And in order to fix the game and have people say it's gotten better, that means that people would have had to go back and keep playing it throughout all these updates. So either the reviews are misleading, like people are giving a negative review even though they like playing the game and they can't stop playing it, or the reviews are true and people just keep giving it chances. And given how many games people own and how limited their time is, that's confusing to me. Like I that was a game that I really wanted to play and I wanted to buy. As soon as I saw that review, I'm like, oh no, I'm not gonna anymore. That's not interesting to me.
Yeah. And I guess here is a question. I guess you kind of answered already, Rob, but here's a question for everybody watching. I think a few people have already answered this one in chat, but how much do you put value in review scores? Not gaming YouTubers, not your friends, but when you go to a Steam page or to Metacritic and you see a 75 or a 95, how much value do you put in that when it comes to justifying whether to buy or wait on a game?
And while they start posting their responses, I'll just say usually it's a game that looks good to me, that I don't know much about, that I'm interested in. And if I see that mixed, I will read a couple of those Steam reviews. But if they're consistent enough, I will not buy a game that I wouldn't even say I'm on the fence about it. No Man's Sky looked so great to me, and it looked like something I'd be super interested in. But as soon as I saw the review, I'm like, well, I'm going to hold off.
Yeah, I think I am the same way. Like, if the game has mixed reviews, that's the first thing that I will look at. Like for me, like if it's a game that I'm interested in and it's on sale, I don't care about the reviews. Like if it's like $2-3, yeah, I'm gonna, I'll roll the dice on that one. But like when like people link me a game, oh, it's on sale for like $10 or $15, or there's some crazy sale right now, and I see mixed reviews, that's when I will usually go and see what's going on. Now, there's also the case, like speaking about negative reviews to positive reviews, there's also kind of the problem when it comes to the value of these reviews, and that is probably its own topic. But as we've said, with so many people these days, being quote-unquote game journalists or game YouTubers, it's very hard to separate the noise from the signal when it comes to that regard. Like, for instance, like talking about Steam reviews, I've seen people do a negative review that says, "This game made my cat jump on the countertop." Thumbs down. Or a positive review, "This game has this game made my girlfriend excited." Positive review. It's like, okay, well, that's great. So, and then that's getting integrated into the Metacritic or to the algorithm there.
And like what Draken just said, Breath of
Hmm.
the Wild, great game, 7 out of 10. Like
Yeah.
people will do that. Like, I love this game, thumbs down.
Oh yes. And the
And that,
problem, though, of course, is that
go ahead.
it still gets integrated. Like when Steam or Metacritic or whoever correlates these results, they're still getting factored in there. Compared next to like somebody like I've seen Steam reviews that it's literally like 2 pages long of this person breaking things down about what they liked and disliked about it.
Yeah. And Jankovic, that's a very key note. You read between the lines of the reviews, and if someone says that I didn't like this game because of XYZ, and you're like, well, I happen to like XYZ, well, that'll definitely tip your scales, and it really is helpful to like read the reviews carefully. And that's I do that with No Man's Sky, and no one was convincing one way or the other to me. Actually, they convinced me not to. But I will say I'm being a little hypocritical. There was a game I played. It was one of those game dev simulators.
Mm-hmm.
I forget which one. It was like the original one on Steam, and I played the hell out of it. I really did. And then at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I don't like this game. And so I gave it a thumbs down, but at least in my review I could say I played this game for 30 hours. I played it through a couple of
Mm-hmm.
times, and you know what? It's just not deep enough. There's not enough going
Mm-hmm.
on. It seems relatively you could easily kind of cheat your way to win, and there's just not enough here. So in that way, I feel like I left a good review, but at the same time, I played that game for a long time to not like it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I've played games like that where I will like it, but it still is annoying me. Like I wrote a review for Way of the Passive Fist, and I still need to do a video or stream on that game. And while it has some really great ideas to it, the basic concepts or there were just so many annoying factors. And I think that's another big point about when we look at these reviews that most reviews, even for like regardless of where we're pointing at, it's always polarized. It's black or white, yes or no, love or hate. And it's very hard sometimes when the game falls in that middle row or that middle field of what you think about it. Because I've seen people leave reviews saying, I really like this game, but it's just annoying me, or there's just something I just don't like. I can't say thumbs up, but I can't give it, a sideways thumb, so I have no choice but I have to give it a thumbs down.
Yeah. Yeah, in a weird kind of way, the binary response, the Boolean options for thumbs up, thumbs down, like every once in a while, excuse me, I think to myself, well, that seems like very unfulfilling to leave a review that has to be thumbs up or thumbs down. I play this game a lot, but I can't give it a thumbs up. It's just not that good of a game. So thumbs down. But you step back and you look at the aggregate, and it is a little more telling. And then you can read the reviews and see why someone would give it a thumbs up and why someone would give it a thumbs down. But at the same time, like getting back to the original point is, does that make you buy the game? And reminding you about the re-reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And when it comes to like that kind of stuff, like one other thing I want to bring up before we get to the whole idea of re-reviews again is just I guess here's a question for you, Rob. Again, you've been doing video game producing. You've done the indie side. You're in AAA now, and the one of the big elephants in the room when it comes to game reviews, of course, is everybody's favorite term, Metacritic.
Yeah.
Metacritic, depending upon who you talk to, is the devil incarnate. Depending upon whether you're a game journalist or a game developer who gets to see their information on there. And at
Yeah.
this point, for people watching this, I'm sure everyone here knows what Metacritic is, but on the off chance you don't, Metacritic collates and aggregates all the reviews and will then. There you go, Draken, exactly. But they will collate and then create the average of all the reviews based on a game. So, game gets an 80, that's a average of all the places it pulls from. The problem, though, is that it will pull from just about every site imaginable. Like, if your site has a numerical rating for a game, it will probably pull from it. And sometimes it will even assign numerical reviews if your site is like a 3 out of 5, or 2 stars, or 7 tomatoes, or stuff like that. And it has become, like, just without anyone really asking for it, the standard or the measurement for video games, especially in the AAA market. We've all heard horror stories of publishers saying, you will not get your bonus if your game doesn't get at least an 86 out of 100 Metacritic score.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loved your game, but got an 84? Screw you, you don't get that money. So, what do you think about that, Rob?
I mean, I don't know how much. Certainly, the company I'm at, they have a very consistent game, and this has its own interesting spins on this very discussion, and that's an annually released sports game. So I work on the esports version of NBA 2K, and coming 19 is coming soon, and so you get that polarized review from everyone, like they hate it but they love basketball games, so they're going to keep buying it, that kind of thing. So given that there's like 2 basketball games on the market and ours is number 1, it's hard to say, well, this didn't get so much of a thing, so bonus or whatever. I don't know enough about the money, and I'm certainly not part of that discussion anyway. But I don't know how much of that is done at our company. Maybe more, because I mean 2K is pretty wide. I don't know how much it is in those other like sub companies under the umbrella. But like that definitely did happen back in the past at the very least, and that is frustrating because like you have the Metacritic score of like 70, and you find out like your let's just go with the sports game, your NBA 2K19 got a 3 out of 10 by RPG Review, and that's a weird thing to include in a Metacritic score because it's obviously not the audience. And so along those lines, Metacritic is a weird thing to base your business on, without any real proof that that's what people go to. And like Chad has been saying for the whole time, and we've been alluding to, like, Metacritic isn't what we as hardcore gamers are looking at. I mean, that might be more of a casual thing. I don't know, because you do a Google search and you see that big square with the 80 in it or whatever. We go to YouTube sites, we go to forums, we talk to our friends who are also fans, and so I don't know what the monetary value of Metacritic is. I shrug and say there must be one, but I don't know what it is or how reliable it is.
Yeah, and your point there about RPG gamer. I mean, again, Metacritic pulls from everything. I'm sure there are like God of War reviews from like ChristianGamer.com or family friendly games, and it kind of, this is one of those very weird issues that it takes a lot of various factors into it. The hit-driven nature of the game industry, the complete I can't think of the word I want to use, like just how spread out game journalists is. The fact that anyone with a website or a YouTube channel can kind of get like fake credibility in a sense. Like all you need is a good looking thumbnail, and you can just have a 15-minute video where you just scream and curse about a video game, and now you're a professional reviewer. And there's also one of the big points, as Draken brought about Battlefront 2, and then we'll get to re-reviews after this, the idea behind the quote-unquote review bombs. And that is another major time. I mean, that could probably fit its own, like, what are we up to right now? We're up to only 30 minutes. Feels like, well, we're actually going at a decent clip this time.
Yeah, but that reminds me real quick of Nintendo got into trouble for the iPhone release of that Mario Brothers game. They had, like, I remember it was like getting these massively great reviews, and I was like, this game is not that good. That paywall is insulting. And then one day, hundreds of reviews got cut out, and it was because Nintendo, shoved all their people to review it.
Yeah. And we should also talk about that issue of paid reviews. We'll get to that. Will probably be our final part. But review bombing has been a very serious discussion when it comes to developers, because on one way, it's the way for the consumers to fight back against practices they don't agree with. But on the other hand, it's kind of become this big hammer that gets swung around no matter what happens. Like, is it really fair for consumers to massively downvote a game because they want Chinese translation, or they want, or we've seen like they want less female characters in video games, or they want more female characters in video games. Or if the developer says something they don't like, they'll just say, "I'm making this negative review because the developer called someone a bad name. I don't care about the game itself." Like, is that really a practical, I guess, weapon for people to use?
I think it goes hand in hand with the idea of write your congressman, call your congressman. Like, we're mad about this one thing, so flood that office with requests. And I think it's the same thought process. How useful that is, I don't know. Like, excuse me, you don't necessarily need bad reviews to get a developer to do something. Because I'll let you get to the re-review thing because I don't want to keep pushing that away. But yeah, I don't know if you really need to do that, because a lot of developers listen and they're already working on stuff. So if enough people request it, then they'll just do it anyway. You don't have to like bomb them with bad reviews, because that's hitting people, like assuming it affects people's buying decisions, which it does for casual, I think. But then yeah, you're hitting them in the pocketbooks, and that definitely sucks as a developer.
Yep, and overall, the JonTron case, that was with the game A Hat in Time that came out last year. I think the issue was that JonTron was either one of the backers or one of the voice actors that was pulled in to voice one of the characters in the game, and this was before he had this I think it was either a transphobic or anti-immigration rant. Are you sure? I think it was A Hat in Time. He was also in Yooka-Laylee, though. I know somebody was in Yooka-Laylee, someone was in A Hat in Time. But what happened was a lot of people called for them to remove the voice. They would remove his lines from A Hat in Time, and the developers refused, or they didn't want to do that for whatever reason. And so the game got hit with a lot of negative reviews around the time of launch, saying they support JonTron or stuff along those lines, and none of those people actually played the game to leave a review. And again, this once again brings in the question about the validity of these reviews, where you don't play the game, but because you don't like the developer's politics or you don't like what they said about something, you're going to leave a negative review that's going to be measured on the same level as somebody who played the game and found these issues. Another game was that Kingdom Come Deliverance, where the developer said issues about how he didn't want to have diversity in his games, and that whole problem. And of course, a lot of people did that. Subnautica was another case. And again, while issues about, when we get to like those very hot topic or very political issues, they are a major factor to talk about. But in the same breath, do they have any validity when we're trying to determine whether or not a game is good or bad or not?
Yeah, and that is a tough one. It really is. It's one that I struggle with personally, because it's like Kevin Spacey being one of the more famous recent examples of this, because he literally last minute had to be replaced by another actor because he was a horrible person, it turns out. And I mean, that is, to me, that's absolutely valid. You want to target this one person because they need to change their ways. They're being publicly bad or whatever. And so it's hard to support a person who is legitimately a bad person, or at least, has committed a lot of bad acts in their recent life or even extended life. But like, is it a good game or bad game? Well, that they really don't have any relation. They don't at all. But it comes down to people who want to take a stance, and it's hard for me to support something that that pays these people tons of money, and it feels like they're being rewarded for not being good people. And that comes down to being a personal thing, one person to the next. Like, I can't disagree with anyone who loves a game. You love a game, you love to play it. It's a big part of your life because you have to spend dozens of hours sometimes. Excuse me. And so I can't fault someone. It comes down to, is this your choice? Is this not? I feel like bombing reviews, that's that might be something that's why I like Steam. How Steam handles it is like unless you own the game,
Mm-hmm.
like you've bought the game with money on their site,
Yep.
you can't review. Your review doesn't count. You can review, but it doesn't count.
Yeah.
I like that aspect of it.
Yeah. And I think that's another really interesting point there, Rob. And it's one that, again, gets brought up a lot, especially today as more and more of these scandals are being uncovered, sadly. The whole, talking about Kevin Spacey being a Iran person, there's, of course, Bill Cosby as well.
Yeah.
And following the allegations and then the confirmations about what happened, his issues, there's this whole point about, well, can we still watch the Cosby Show? Like, if we watch, that show was a groundbreaking foundational show of the 80s. And there's that issue of, if you watch that, are you supporting Bill Cosby? And it's the same thing with the video game industry. As you said, when you find out that somebody is rotten or they do something very evil and malicious like that, when you give them money, you are, in some aspect, you are supporting them. But the thing with the video game is that it's not just one person. That one person could be just one of 15, 30, 100 people who worked on this game. And they may not have known about it, or they may have no relation to it. But it's always that very weird issue. And this by itself gets us into a very big topic of another famous adage: can you separate the art from the artist? And when it comes to video games, that's even harder to do because, like I just said, it's never just one person making a game. But I think that in of itself could probably be its own topic for a future one.
Sure. For sure.
But I'm trying to think if there's anything else regarding the review bombs. I think that is... Yeah, I think that's it. Like, I think it was smart, like as you said, Rob, for Steam to just say, yeah, you can review the game, but if you don't actually own it, we're not going to calculate it. I mean, that just makes sense, really. But
it does.
Here is a question I'm going to pose now, because I want to see some thoughts about here, and we'll see if anyone watching this recorded gets to it. Do you think there should be some way to measure a reviewer? Because this is another very big topic as well. But should there be a way to make one reviewer's score or video or post be ranked higher than somebody else's? Because that gets into another major topic.
I mean, it already exists, and that's YouTubers and Twitch streamers. I mean, the more followers you have, the more impact you have. Like, if Ninja did not fully support Fortnite, would Fortnite have the same success it does now?
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty high end, or vice versa, right? If Fortnite wasn't as impactful, would he have that same support? Like, and now if he decides he likes a game, or if he wants to leave Fortnite, well, you're going to see some major impact. And in a way, I agree that yes, a reviewer, because like if someone comes on and leaves one review as part of a bomb, well, you want to kind of invalidate that a little bit. Just like in, Amazon uses this and Reddit uses this. It's, this person has paid their dues. They've left a bunch of reviews. They are at least trustworthy in their own opinion set. So you know what you're getting from that person. I do think that there should be more of a weight given to someone who has consistently left reviews, whether good or bad, whether they're horrible at reviewing or not. At least you can look and see the consistency, if there is any, amongst a reviewer, and trust that they are an actual person leaving, reviews that are at least, you imagine that as a reviewer they have some kind of consistent thought and not just being a vote that someone paid for. It doesn't mean that's always the case. It's certainly not with gosh, what was I mean, it goes back to the old radio payola. They'll pay you play this song, and suddenly people want to hear it more or whatever. Yeah.
Yep, and that's the tricky part, is we have seen what happens when YouTubers or Twitch streamers throw their weight around in terms of their name. Like we've said before, I've spoken to developers who have said that if it wasn't for Total Biscuit back in the day reviewing my game, we wouldn't have nowhere near the success. Yeah. And then this becomes its own business of people soliciting money. There you go. Thank you, Alberto, there. But like we've seen this with YouTubers who will say, you want me to review your game? It's going to cost you like $200 to $300, and you don't want it? Well, then I'm not going to look at your game at all. And that gets even more. I can get a little bit more skeevy as well. Or Markiplier with Five Nights at Freddy's. And again, like this says even to another topic when it comes to marketing and such with video games. But yeah, like, I'm not a fan of how much weight like YouTubers and Twitch streamers have, because it just seems like I watch big name people review games. Like I've watched Markiplier play Five Nights at Freddy's. I've watched PewDiePie do a few of his game spotlights. And I'm like, I'm not really getting anything out of this. Like it just seems like the name is more important than the quality of the content at that point.
Yeah, and I've been involved in that. Like with Indie Voyage, like I found myself doing a show. Like I asked if someone would play my game. They said yes, and then they hinted that I should pay them, and I did. I left them a tip at the end, and I feel like miserable now in retrospect, because that is not the way to do it. And I know what you're thinking, Josh. You're like, why didn't you pay me? But like, it's a weird thing to get involved in, and it makes at least me feel dirty, and like but when you're desperate, when you have a game that no one's watching or no one's playing, and it's not even that they hate it, it's that they have no clue that it exists.
Oh yes.
And you're desperate to get it out there, like, boy, it's hard to not try and do stuff like that. Like it is, and also from the perspective of a YouTuber or reviewer, like it's not easy to make money. If Josh plays, yeah, exactly. Would you play NBA 2K? Anything? No, but it's not easy making money as a YouTuber. I mean, I'm assuming, right?
No, it's not.
No, so it's like, at a certain point, there's like, well, this seems like a legitimate way to make money. I can't blame anyone. I don't think anyone's in there like trying to do evil, like hand wringing, petting a cat in a chair stuff, But at a certain point, like, you look at it and you're just like, oh no, that's definitely not right. Like there it is not a right thing. It's an easy thing to see, but it's not an easy thing to see when you're in the weeds like that, and it sucks. It really sucks.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I've been trying to do more with Patreon, try and get things that way. And again, I for everyone who has been donating so far, thank you so much. But I would love to be able to get enough through Patreon that I can live off of that month to month, as opposed to like just trying to just barely scrape by there. But yet, it is hard all around. And it's just very tricky, I think, to navigate those waters when it comes to YouTube. Like, for me, like, if someone sends me a copy of a game, as long as it's not something I outright hate, I'll make a video for it. Like, I don't really, I'm not going to care if your game is being viewed by tens of thousands of people or just by 10 people. Like, for you folks watching this, I have reviewed, like, very weird and interesting puzzle games, some weird... I remember this really weird, like, roguelike meets Tetris game that I reviewed on the channel, like, a year and a half ago or something like that. But as a very weird point, as you were saying about, like, YouTubers not wanting to... I think my computer will explode if you... Don't say that too loud, Draken. My computer will explode if you say that. But I remember, like, there are developers out there who outright hate YouTubers or, view them as lesser. I got in touch with a developer once for a game, I won't name it, and the guy actually said, well, I don't think you're going to give me much value, if I give you a key, but let me just see what you can do anyway. And I came really close to telling that guy off when he said that to me, but I kind of bit my tongue and I played it anyway. And yeah, that's the point. It's just that very weird, again, this like murky ball of consumers, developers, and people trying to make a living off of everything that just gets very weird to navigate.
It is, and also as a publisher, like a publisher or in whatever space. I worked in like in a gambling space, and boy, that's like you don't want to. And it's a gambling space that you have to interact with game developers, and some game developers, absolutely understandably, just not only do not want anything to do with you, but are not afraid to like angrily respond. And as an indie game publisher as well, like that, it was the same kind of thing. Like some people thought you were the Antichrist just for putting those words together. And again, I understand it. But at the same time, it's like, well, you can be reactionary, or you can just say no, thanks. Whatever. See you later. We'll probably never cross paths again.
Yeah.
It's about burning those bridges and stuff. It's in the end, you can have a strong opinion about something, and I have many. But at a certain point, like, you come face to face with that thing you don't like, most of the time you should probably act just like it's a normal exchange, like you've been there before. Like, you can just say no. You can say no and walk away. And if that person becomes aggressive, then now you have the opportunity to tell them off.
Like for myself, I really don't like when I see like YouTubers or people who pass them off as professional, and when they talk about the games, they talk about like the game, insulted their family, or the developers attacked them, and they're just like talking, like you can hear like the bile building in their throat about, these developers did this, or this game is horrible, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And that's being factored into reviews, or what people think about video games. Now, of course, you can get angry at a game, but I do think there should be some level of professional courtesy.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that a lot of YouTubers, that's how they get their views, is by being this caricature of themselves, whether it be angry and anti whatever, and insulting and whatever, like insulting the hell out of a game just because you don't like the way something was done in that game. You're affecting the purchase, and you might have a power trip. I don't know how it works, but that might just be the character you're portraying on your YouTube channel that your viewers come and watch. And it's I don't know, it's such a weird line, between entertainment and affecting other people's livelihoods.
Oh no, I was thinking of a different developer there, Dragon. But yeah, like, I'm not a big fan of Angry Joe either. Just, I don't like to, like, for me, like, yelling just turns me off when I hear people trying to yell, whether they're trying to prove their point or make a review. But that's just me. But yeah, like, that whole power trip thing, I think is a major point. So what that means for you folks is that next week I want everyone to call me Lord Josh from now on when I play reviews. And if you don't, I will ban you. But I think, I'm trying to think if there's anything else there. I know we have to get to re-reviews, but yeah, I think the power trip is one of when people like actually insult developers, just insult the developers personally like that. I think that just goes a little too far. But there's two more points about this. Now I feel we're starting to get a little long. There we go. Yeah. But there's two more points I want to touch on when it comes to reviews. So let's talk about re-reviews for a second, because this is another major part about how valid reviews are today. With the growth of games as a service, it has become very hard for reviews to even still remain valid after 2 months or even a year. Elgato, of course, brought up Warframe, and that's another big example. I remember as well when Warframe first came out, what was that, 2013, 2014, and it was blasted for reviews. I remember seeing a lot of people just outright hate that game. I didn't play it when it first came out, and over the years, of course, Warframe has become massive. They've got their conventions, they've had multiple, and I do mean multiple, game design rebuilds of that game. It's become a completely different beast. And in this case, it's gotten a lot better, as of course people watching this can certainly attest to. But those reviews from back in 2013 are still part of its, quote-unquote permanent record. And then you have games that could have gotten worse, or could have been radically changed. Payday 2 being a good example of this. Team Fortress being another big one. And again, like, when it comes to this idea of re-reviews, consumers will say, yes, that's great and all. But when you have people who are reviewing games for a living, and you got 36 games coming out today to review, can you really go back to a game from 4 or 5 years ago and do it again? So what do you think about this, Rob?
I mean, it is a tough thing. One of the things that I notice a lot when reading Steam reviews is that someone will say, I'm giving it a negative review for this, and when they fix it, I'm going to come back and give it a positive review.
But how many people do that?
Exactly. That's the part that gets me. It's like, well, are you going to do that? Are you really going to pay that much attention and go back and fulfill that promise of changing your one thumbs down to a thumbs up? Some people, I'm sure, do it, and I, respect to those people, because that is legitimately impressive. But for like a YouTuber or whatever, yes, they should absolutely go back and do that, assuming they are aware that the game has improved. Like No Man's Sky being the perfect example. That game, the way Steam does it, they try really hard to show recent reviews at the very least, so that you see what people have been leaving lately, and I love that. That's a great feature, because then you don't have to worry so much about people going back and changing. You just have to see what people are thinking now, but like you have a significant review someone posted, and that could be an alpha, that could be like in beta or whatever, that could be like pre-release, like whatever. You got the game for free way back when, you did not like it, you did not like the direction it was headed, and then just before release it changes completely, but you reviewed it a year ago. So and so when people look up this game that just came out, they're going to see your terrible review, and then they're not going to buy it. And so yes, it would be very good for YouTubers to do that. From a publisher standpoint, you should go out and email those people and say, hey, could you take another look? It's changed a lot. We'd appreciate it if you did. And otherwise, it's not like the personality or the content creator even knows that happened. Yeah. And if you make, so you gotta follow up as the developer yourself. If you see someone who has an old review, you should let them know and say, hey, we've improved it. We've met a lot of the comments you yourself made. Like that's a good way of doing it. It improves the dialogue not only between you and the reviewer, but between you, the reviewer, and the fans. So, I really am a fan of re-reviews. I would love to see more of that, because it is these days of all the work that goes into a game after launch. Like it's necessary.
Just like as we said last week when we talked about when a video game is done, and for a lot of people, they expect months and years of content coming down the line. And it's always tricky, though, I think, to know what point do you re-review a game. Because, again, like something like Warframe, that's an easy example. It's gotten multiple gameplay revisions. But what about games that go for, like, a very long burn? Like, let's say every 6 months we release a new episode. Or, let's say in 2 years from now, like, we decide to rebrand the game, or we have a big 1.5 patch that completely redoes it or redo the game. Like how much work should go into a game to warrant or justify a re-review?
Yeah, and I feel like that goes down to how popular is your game, because World of Warcraft, they're as soon as they drop a new patch, millions of sites, well, millions, but thousands of sites are going to have all kinds of information on the update. League of Legends, Dota, Rocket League, anything like that that's an esport that's competitive, any kind of little change, you have to just get that information out there, and people are going to dig into it. So you have all that information, but for like a mid-tier game, you might not have that fan support that's going to go and dedicate themselves to that. So yeah, it's tough. And how long you spend, like, and you'll have to forgive me again, because I have the worst memory when it comes to game names, but like it was that one game that was, they increased the price significantly. It was a game where everybody in the town wore some kind of like happy face mask. They look like mimes.
We Happy Few.
We Happy Few. There it is. Yeah. Like what happens if the game gets worse over time, or has something like that happen? Like it's beneficial for consumers to know whether it's better or worse, and at any given time. It helps us all.
Yeah. And I think, and I agree with you on that at some point, like, there has to be, like, when you see those massive changes, like, for instance, I've been playing Cultist Simulator, and he's got a roadmap until, I think, the start of next year, right now, planning for more content and more updates. So at that time, it's going to be a completely different game. And as Draken said in chat, like, the Complete Edition, that's another big point. I mean, we're going to play Borderlands 2 later tonight. And I have, I bought the DLC. They have a complete edition, has all that stuff in it. And again, that makes the game different than what it was at 1.0. And in some cases, these games have gotten better. Some cases, they've gotten worse. But I think there has to be a point where you do have to give these games a second look, especially, like, I think it's kind of disingenuous to say we want games to be continually supported, but then, yeah, you have to keep looking at them. Like that, you can't do one without the other, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, you have to. And I feel like as a YouTuber, as a content creator, it behooves you to set yourself apart with that level of professionalism.
Mm-hmm. I want to do a quick peek at We Happy Few there. Oh yes, yes I did, Drac, and I try to ignore those as best as I can. Let's see what is going on with We Happy Few right now. So they're saying it's going to be coming out on August 10th. And it's going to be very interesting to see because they've kind of like flip-flopped on what they want the focus of that game to be. And again, that's another really good point there about like what happens when that game changes so much from beginning to the middle to where it's at now. And yeah, I think that those are definitely cases for re-reviews. But we are about like 50 minutes in just for this one topic alone. So let's move on before we get completely trapped by this one. But yeah, I think reviews still have a place, but it's definitely a push and pull between the professionalism of the reviewers and just the quality and the continued work of the games. Yeah. What do you think?
No, it is. It's because games they change so much these days, and keeping up with it is important. And I know, like you do, you go back, you check out new DLC as it comes out, especially for games you have interest in, and that's important. Like YouTube channels that I follow online for Planet Coaster, like the day that they see a trailer, it's just content, just tons of stuff. So I know it's coming out long before, and I don't even pay much attention except that I occasionally open up my YouTube. That's about it.
Yep. And yeah, that's another thing about just how much it really explodes. Like I see one type of video that always annoys me are the reaction videos to trailers. That just to me is just like wasted content. But I may piss off that's another thing. Depending upon who you are, you may either hate me for that or you may love me for saying that.
Yeah, I just want to watch the trailer. I don't want to watch you watching the trailer. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm old school.
All right, but